Ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce that Smooth Sack Summer is officially upon us. When you're playing in the summer sun, make sure you're groomed from the pubes to bum. Thanks to our friends at Manscaped, you can make this season your smoothest yet. The Performance Package 5.0 Ultra is the ultimate bundle to keep your boys downstairs cool while looking hot. Join the 10 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped with our exclusive offer. Get 20% off and free shipping when you go to manscaped.com and use the code SHOW20. Summertime, and the trimming is easy. The Manscaped Performance Package 5.0 Ultra has got everything you need to prepare that summer bod. Every man knows how scary it is when you get close for a shave below the belt, and that's why I trust Manscaped for all my sensitive areas. Okay, now inside the package you're going to find the star of the show, the Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra. The 5th generation trimmer features 2 interchangeable next-gen skin-safe blade heads, a standard one for taking a little bit off the top, and then a new foil blade for going smooth wherever your heart desires. Plus, they've also got dual LED spotlights to provide contrast on multiple skin tones, 3-length setting combs, and did I mention that trim is waterproof? Beach, lake, shower, this razor will devour even the strongest pubes. And now that you've got the perfect haircut, use Manscaped's liquid formulations to keep that freshness even at the hottest summer barbecues. The Crop Soother Aftershave Lotion and Crop Preserver Anti-Chafe Ball Deodorant. Once they touch your sack, you will never go back. So get 20% off and free shipping with the code SHOW20 at manscaped.com. That's 20% off and free shipping with the code SHOW20 at manscaped.com. It's Smooth Sack Summer, boys. Get on board or get left behind. Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of the FM Show. I am your host Tony Jameson. Joining me as always is my right hand man RDF Tactics aka Arron Falloon. And Arron, we've got ourselves a guest.
Yes, a special friend.
A special friend. A special friend. Long-time friend, former work colleague as well. Everyone, say hello to the wonderful Matt Taylor Richards. Matt, how are you, pal? Are you well?
Hi, how's it going? This is just so weird. It's just really weird. Yeah, I'm really good. I'm good. Yeah, we were chuckling before because it's like we currently don't know what year it is. It's like it feels like 2021 maybe all over again. But yeah,
yeah. It feels like 20. It's like 2021 with 3 minutes worth of injury time added on it. Just like holding up, going 4. Where did they get 4 from?
Like 2021 with better mental health. We're all in a lot better. Yeah.
I mean, speak for yourself. Just because I've checked out of therapy doesn't mean I'm fixed.
It's an onward process, Tony. Yeah.
Exactly. So we should give some sort of context first of all, because there might be people out there going, who's Matt Taylor Richards? What are they on about? Former colleague. Matt, we'll give you the full CV and then you can fill in all the blanks for all the bits that we've either got wrong or you can say, no, that's not me at all. So Matt and I used to work on a podcast that we talked about in the last episode when we talked about with Ian McIntosh, who again we worked on a previous podcast with. So if we go far enough back, I'll get someone on from uni that we did a radio show with. So yeah, Matt and I used to work on a podcast called Football Manager Therapy. We were both the co-hosts of that, and that's where we discovered Mr. RDF Tactics.
We said earlier, our very own wonder kid. We unearthed him. Yeah.
Yeah, we saw 5 stars in that boy's life, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, I do remember those times, man. I enjoy those times when you could make a mistake because you're new.
It was, so like I think you gave us a little bit of you downplayed us a little bit. We didn't just work on Football Manager Therapy. We're the founders of Football Manager Therapy. It's part of your idea, mate. Like, you know.
Well, yeah, there is that. I've glossed over it a little bit. So right. Okay, let's wind it all back then. Let's wind it all back. Let's give some actual context as to how this all came about. Arron, we'll say hello to you properly in a second, and we'll find out where you are with your life, right? But we haven't spoken to Matt for a little while, so let's take everyone back on a little journey, shall we, Matt? To 2019, and then into 2020, and I don't know if you remember, but it was that time when everyone was just sat at home and just seemed to have like loads of time to themselves, wondering what to do. Do I go outside? No, it's illegal. Can't do that. What shall we do? Well, what do we do in those situations, Matt? We sit and play a video game that we used to like back in the day, didn't we?
I think what's weird is well, I was thinking about this earlier. So for context as well, like obviously, like Tony, you were doing quite a bit of comedy around that time. I was a presenter. Still kind of am, but I've kind of winded down in comparison. So we both kind of were in the same situation where, you know, our main job or our main sort of income or whatever kind of just disappeared overnight. Again, mainly being in live events. So I think I kind of had this I had this name, this football manager therapy name for a while, and I previously had I nearly gave it to someone actually. Which is a very stupid thing that I nearly did, but I backtracked on it, so we're all good. And I kind of wanted it to be a follow-up to your show, a continuation. So that's kind of where the idea came from. And like, I think me and you as well, because we always joke about me and you being mates and like how we met and stuff. And it was funny because we weren't like instantly really close, good friends. We just kept on turning up at the same things with different people,
the same things,
and we were like, "Oh, this guy, he must be all right." And we kind of like just slowly.
well, he knows him, and he knows her, and I like them, and he must be there, so he must be okay. And you know, we have a bit of a chat, and yeah, it was friends of friends, wasn't it? And then I think you came to the to the show at the Lowry in Manchester again with more mutual friends, and it was just like, oh cool, let's have a bit of a chat, and this is all brilliant. And then, as you say, this world turned, the world changed, and everyone was you know, our industries had collapsed overnight. We had no outlet for creativity, and I still don't know how it came about.
I have
whoever
no idea.
messaged who.
I feel like it was.
I still don't know.
I feel like it was me
the first thing.
I don't know. I think me and you were talking about. This is so sad. I think me and you were talking about CrossFit a lot because we hadn't seen each other for like years, like in person. And I think we were just chatting on something about CrossFit. And I just one day I was like, do you know what? I've got this idea. I was like, do you want to do it? And like, I don't think I ever expected you to say yeah. And then you were like, yeah. And then it was almost like this moment where I was like, oh no, I'm gonna have to actually do this now. And then it went from there. But
it was very much like we both had the idea of doing something, and we were like, what do we do? Neither of us had the technology to make anything video wise, I suppose. We didn't really want to do that because, you know, I mean, stand up over Zoom wasn't really a thing I was particularly looking to get into. Presenting again, you know, you've got to feed off energy. We know this, right? So we're like, right, what can we do? Well, what's our strengths? Our strengths are talking. Okay, our strengths are talking. So therefore, audio content will be the way we do it. We back and forth with some ideas of like how we put the thing together, and the name Football Manager Therapy just hit so hard and so perfect at the time, because we were, without wanting to oversell it, times were tough back then. Like, and a lot of the world was using Football Manager as escapism from what was going on. And the title was just like bang, right?
And I think what's funny was, sorry, go for it.
I was going to say that because that was the time, like every time I'll speak about content creating and how I got into it, I always like, I wish it was during COVID though, because I think obviously the takeoff would have been a bit more upwards as well. But I remember, because that's my firstborn as well. So my firstborn, I didn't even know Football Manager stuff was a thing at that time. And that's still like pretty recent. Like I wasn't watching any Football Manager content or anything. Wasn't even playing the game at that time. I just remembered, not allowed to go outside, and this little one just crying and crying. I wish at that time though I did have that sort of that
Well, I think
therapy, because at the time you don't know that you're
Yeah.
going through things as well. Sometimes you don't know you're really going through, especially when you have a little one. You just have to kick on with things as well.
Yeah.
It's only when real life starts to settle back in, you're just like, I don't really want to go outside anymore, and that sort of thing. Yeah, and start getting anxious around people and that sort of
what
thing.
really
Our youngest one. Sorry, our youngest one was born just before lockdown as well. So we had like an elder one of about like 14 months, and then we had the youngest, and then lockdown, and I was just in this sort of like, I'm knackered anyway from having 2 kids at this point, and then going like all the stuff that was just happening at that time. It was like, oh God, I just needed this escapism. And I remember talking to Dupe, because I got invited to go on to 5-star at the time. And again, I think it was just as we were starting. I think
they were
starting,
just
maybe just before.
Us, yeah.
And I went on, and I think they'd asked the question. They said, "Oh, you've got kids now. Like, do you play less Football Manager?" And I was like, you know what? I'm playing more Football Manager now, because when they wake up at 2:00 in the morning and they're not going to sleep, I'm on the laptop like typing away and doing that. And I just saw Dupe just like laughing his back off, because he was in the same situation with kids. Well, and he's like, yeah, this guy gets it. Like, you know?
So I got that after. I got that afterwards when we moved, because we moved in the middle of COVID as well. I think that actually helped us get the place in the first place. We moved, and then it was like empty house. It was just like, right now, I've settled, laptop, and then that's when I started playing, and then that's when I started talking about tactics, and that's how I got into it as well. But this is when the rules started relaxing and stuff as well. So yeah,
no, I think that's a really good point in terms of like bringing up Dupe and the guys from 5-star, because I think what really helped us when we first started, there was a couple of people doing podcasts. Like Dan Gear was doing a podcast, and obviously 5-star were doing theirs. And I remember kind of having like a vague idea that they existed, and maybe listened to a couple of episodes, but I didn't necessarily know, because I didn't really actually watch a lot of Football Manager content. And it was because you started streaming and creating content before we did the podcast. And then I think it helped that we had those interactions with like some early people, but we had people obviously from our more like entertainment comedy background of like Rob Mulholland started doing stuff online, and John Robertson like went online and did his stuff. And even a guy called Matt Ricardo, who a lot of people might not know, but he's incredible. Started making online content, and I think it really helped when we started to actually discover there's an outlet for this and there's a path for us. And I think it also actually really helped that the inspiration didn't come from in that Football Manager space, because I think we would have maybe restricted ourselves in terms of what we were going to do for the content, because I think we would have kept it more, you know, I know we discussed this before about your show, and you had it where it was that thing of, it's actually the reverse of what you did with your show, where when you wrote your show, you did loads of comedy and then occasional FM stuff. Whereas we flipped it with the podcast, where we weren't like loads of FM stuff and then a bit of comedy. We were just like, well, what's going to make us laugh? What's going to make us be happy? What are we going to enjoy? And it just happened that a lot of it was based around Football Manager. But then, you know, obviously we had our KS episodes, which we'll probably go into a little bit more in detail. But like, I think the precursor to
Patreon,
everything. But like, I think it really did help to not be restrictive of like being in that FM space first. And like we always said, like we always felt a bit weird where we sat in that community. Like you're weirder than me, because no one knows who I am, and that's great, and I love it. That's what I want to keep it. But like with you're like, people are like, oh my god, it's Tony Jameson, and I'm like, you want the dafty from the northeast? And they're like, no, he's the Football Manager guy, and I'm like, oh.
I'm like that. Going, what do you mean me? Is that what do you mean me?
But the funny thing is like, if it's Ian McIntosh, I'm like, oh my god, it's Ian McIntosh. So I get it. I do get it. I really do.
Well, this was part of it, like, because when we put it together, we were trying to sort of like, none of us really knew who was going to listen, because again, the same with the show. I didn't know who was going to come to the show. I didn't know if anyone was going to come to the show, but they did. And then we put the podcast together, and people didn't necessarily think to search for Football Manager and podcast in the same sentence. And even now, we still get people surprised that there's a podcast.
Yeah.
Never mind a plethora of podcasts that are available that have been long-standing and have been going for years. They're like, oh, I didn't realize there was a podcast about Football Manager.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, there's a few now. There's a few. And like we went through, you're right, like we didn't have it as content first. And I suppose the same with what we've got here, Arron, as well. Like we find that because we've now got the show on YouTube and as an audio podcast, the video part of the show, the YouTube part of the show, falls within the Football Manager content creator space, but probably sits better under the podcast category of YouTube, but would get lost because no one's going to be searching there. And then the audio is sort of under leisure, where we Arron and I, Matt and I know the Royal Horticultural Society tend to sit
all
with
those
us.
gardening podcasts.
We wage war against them every week.
But
it's weird though.
It's just like, it's crazy.
It's crazy because my start to Football Manager videos, it's literally the exact same. I never had like no inspiration because I've never seen a Football Manager video before. So there was no way for me to like, this is the way to do it. And then this is how people explain things and blah, blah, blah. It was just literally, I had a blog and an FM Scout's like, hey, why don't you just turn this into a video? I'm like, that was a pretty weird request in the first place. So I was like, I've never done a video, but I was just like, but I'm fairly creative like that anyway from the music background. So it was just like, yeah, this is a way for me to sort of get back into things. And then, it was like, I saw the views. I was like, you what? I was like, you what? He's like, yeah, you get 50% if you like want to join the team. I was like, sign me up today. I had like another video within 2 days and stuff. And that's literally how it kicked off. But then that's how I realized that I was pretty unique. Because when I started watching other people, like not to like diss anyone, but it was like pretty systematic, especially like tactic videos. Like there was a certain way to do it, or people that show the tactic first, explain the roles, blah, blah, blah. Whereas I'm like, I really like real life football. And I really want to bring real life football into it because that's how it helps me explain things as well when you get back into Football Manager, because my sort of language is from reading tactical blogs, like real life tactical blogs and stuff. And I realized that some of my language can just go over people's heads when just talking about Football Manager. So it was always about like integrating real life football as well, which then I felt like no one else was doing at that time. So I think that's what pretty made me unique as well.
I mean, that's again is part of where we sat. Like we didn't really go into it to make Football Manager videos. Like, I know we were just doing audio at the time, Matt, but the amount of episodes, and I don't know if Arron knows this, but the amount of episodes that we would record, I think for argument's sake, we record on a Saturday night, right? And then like real football would happen. And then like a massive news story would break on Sunday and we'd re-record the episode again. And then a massive news story would break on Monday morning and we re-record the episode again. We'd have like 3 records before the show went out on Tuesday. And it was just like, what are we doing? Like we're trying to keep up with modern football and then going, how's your save going?
It was just so lost.
It was wild. Like,
first, I think like it was, I would say probably those first 10 to 15 episodes, we were really trying to find what we were trying to do. Especially those first like handful of episodes, like first 3 or 4 episodes, when we started to get a formula or started to like kind of get a little bit more focused in when we did the episodes that were themed around the league. So if they were based in the MLS or the Bundesliga or whatever, and it just gave us a little bit more structure. And again, like this is the thing, is like, you know, we didn't write the show, but we wrote sort of a structure or a blueprint and kind of like we planned stuff out, and then obviously like we filled in the blanks when we recorded it. And I think that really helped it. And then I think it was just really honestly, like I think it was when we just stopped worrying and just started being ourselves was actually the bit when it really clicked for us, because I think that's actually what people want the majority of time from a podcast. Because I think the problem you have with content, you know, not just podcasts or like YouTube content, any kind of content, it kind of falls into one or two categories, which is like fun DIY or like really like high level production. And it's like one of those is actually quite obtainable, and it's not the high level production thing. You know, like I listened they did a podcast about Joy Division in New Order. I think it was BBC that ended up commissioning it. They did one about Arctic monkeys, and it's like the slickest thing in the world ever. Like the Arctic monkeys one's got like Kate Nash narration, and like all the songs are obviously in there, and all that. And you're like, oh, this is amazing. And like I used to struggle with that because I was like, I want to create that content, and then I'm like, I don't have a huge production company, so I can't do it. So I think we clicked in our heads that we were like, actually, like us being us is a nice thing, because when, you know, it's a similar dynamic on the show that you have now. And I think, you know, I kind of see this show as a continuation of what we started, not just because we all kind of started together, but in terms of the structure and the way it is. But I think when you are open and have a conversation like we're having now, it actually brings other people in. You know, whoever's watching it and whatever listening, they feel like they're part of that conversation, and that's what you want. And I think the coolest thing about the show, and any kind of show, is that like the fallout afterwards, people reacting to it and being like, "Oh, I remember when I did this," and whatever. Like it's that nice feeling of like, especially when we were recording it during lockdown and like a lot of like social distancing and whatever, it actually made us feel way more connected to everyone. So like, I think it really helped to have that journey of discovery for us.
I think you're right. I think once, and again, I've spoken about this a lot in comedy, and Matt, you'll have gone through the same thing with presenting, and Arron, you'll have done the same thing with videos. The fact that I'm calling you Arron now is probably going to be really sort of like pertinent to what I'm about to say. But it's all about the phrase is finding your voice. You know, it's called finding your voice for anyone who's unfamiliar with it. When we first put things together, Matt and I thought we were doing this like sort of, we thought we were part of the Athletic at one point, just like, oh, we're doing like really serious journalism, and then like, what's your take on this? And I'm like, I don't really know, but like, you know, but like we thought we'd talk with authority, and then we sort of like, you almost feel like you're sort of sat upright and talking a bit more like, I'm Tony Jameson, and I will talk about Football Manager, and this is Matt Richards, and he will present because he's a presenter. And then after about 10 episodes, it was just like, TJ and Matt are going to chat now. And that's when all the defenses come down and everyone just appreciates it more, because I've said this so many times, so apologies for constantly repeating the same story. I used to hate the review I got at Edinburgh every single year. I went to the Edinburgh Fringe Festival, and the review I would get from every single publication was, it's like spending an hour with your mate in the pub. And I used to think that was rubbish. I thought, I can't put that on a poster. That's crap. I want hilarious, side-splittingly funny. I laughed a minute. But the more I thought about it, once we got into these podcasts, once we started streaming video content, I was like, people just like being in our company. That's what it is. They like spending time with you. And at that point, because they see Tony, they don't see Tony Jameson, the comedian. They see TJ, and they see I'm fine dafting about and making mistakes and playing the idiot. But occasionally I'll say something really smart and intelligent, and they'll be like, "Where's he got that from?"
As someone that's not into like stand-up MCing, though, that's why you're such a good stand-up MC. It's because you're hey, it's Tony, our mate, and like you bring everyone into the room, and you like you really were excellent at that. But then it's that horrible divide, then, isn't it, where you obviously wrote a really successful show as well, so it's not like you were terrible at like the comedy writing or the comedy stuff. But it is hard because one of those things feels like it's so much more impressive and like so much harder. I'm like, oh, I wrote this incredible piece of work. And it's like, actually, one of the hardest things you can do in life is make people be themselves and be comfortable in a room where it can feel a bit awkward and stuff like that. And I think we all kind of do that because we all want to be like, I wrote War and Peace, or I don't know, like produced the sickest song in the world ever. But the reality is, like, sometimes like it just being you is actually like the biggest asset that you've got. And like I had it with presenting. When I first started presenting, those first 3-4 years, suit and tie, ladies and gentlemen, and like, oh, it's just cringy. And then the minute I was just like, why am I doing this? Like, I'm not enjoying this, and I stopped doing it. I ended up getting more work, and it got better. So
it's the second you can feel yourself, and again, you did the same with presenting, with hosting. There's a reason you get called back to places on a regular basis because they like you. and it's they like what you do, and they know that when you're given a microphone, that room is in safe hands. Like you're in charge. Like nothing will go wrong, and if it does go wrong, you know how to make it better. Like, and you're the smart person. Like Arron, you even know, you can even sense on your journey as well. That you go back to like your older videos and how you are now on the podcast. Even from when you started on the podcast, like you're so much more laid back now. Like you're happy, even just like vibing.
You would never have caught me on that athletic, like just chilling sideways like this. It was always like ready. Like I'm just like just chilling, laid back, listening as well. But I'm like, I remember streaming as well. And I remember like one time just losing my head on streaming because I used to be. At first, it was. So this is how it started. It used to be like this good boy, like I'm always smiling, this good boy, which people liked anyway, because that is also like part of me. It wasn't an act. It was just, I was also cautious of like just losing my head because I thought that would just turn people off sort of thing. And it was just like one stressful day on Football Manager. And I was like, I finally lost it. The music obviously didn't help as well. It was like rap music and it was like really grimy. As well, and it was just, I just lost my head. But then I started looking at the view count and it was just like, it just started going up and like people laughing. Because then I realized that this is how people are behind their computer screen. Yeah. And now I'm sort of mirroring. Obviously, there's times I just take it a bit too far, but there's times I'm just like, just going off on one. And then I'm thinking, okay, I'm just complaining too much. And I look at the chat and they're just like laughing their heads off and see, this happens to me and all of this. And that's when usually it gets like a bit busy around that time when I'm just losing. So people come to my stream, I think sometimes, just waiting for that moment for me to lose. Or to hit the woodwork. Once I hit the woodwork, they just know.
But it's authenticity, isn't it? Like they believe you.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, Matt, isn't it? It's about believability. Like we've again, we could have turned up during lockdown making a podcast, and I felt it a little bit, and I don't know if I've ever spoken about this before or not, but I felt it a little bit coming into the FM space during lockdown when I did, partly with a tiny bit of a he's the Football Manager comedian sort of thing. I'm gonna underplay this, Matt. I'm gonna underplay this, right? Okay, like because I didn't realize what I was bringing to the table. Okay, and I would have like messages from like Dr. Benji and Lujo and Work the Space, and I knew who they were. Of course, I knew who they were because I'd been watching that sort of stuff, and I was like going, oh, these people know who I am. And I was like, there's a little bit of imposter syndrome in there. They're going, well, what if I come into this space and what if I'm not very good? Or what if they think I'm coming in to take their work? I'm not, honestly, I'm just here to make a podcast, right? And you don't quite know, but you don't want people to be going, why is he here? Is he only here because of the fact it's lockdown, or is he here for another reason?
Yeah.
I think very quickly people realize that, no, he wants to be here. Like he's happy being here. He's not in just for a short time and he's out. He's gonna stick around a bit.
We did speak about it during the time, and like I remember when we did the podcast about your stand-up show. I remember you even saying in that you were like, I used to not like being the Football Manager guy or the Football Manager comedian, and you kind of said at the end, you were like, I'm actually really proud of that now. And it was kind of nice to have that sort of transformation. But I think the dynamic between me and you always really helped, where you were very like considerate, thoughtful of other people, and I was just like, I don't care, I don't like anyone, I don't want to speak to anyone. I was just like, we're doing our own thing. Like I'm way like more spiky than you. Like, and it's not that like I think I was always protective of like us, and I think I was all I kind of had the same had the suspicion, but in a different way to you, where you had the imposter syndrome. I was always really suspicious of people wanting to get to us, and more specifically get to you, because I always saw it as like, well, they're just trying to get on the hype train of the guy that wrote the Football Manager show, and I was always a bit protective because I remember when you first started floating the ideas of like, oh, such and such wants to be a guest, and like again, this is going to paint me in a terrible light, but I'd be like, well, I don't want them on. Like, who are they? Why do I care? Like, what do they read? And I was ruthless. Like, I was really ruthless with it. But it's funny because then when we started bringing people onto the podcast as guests and stuff, it felt like we actually chose to work with those people. When we brought Arron in, I think Arron was our first guest, right? Yeah, I think you were.
I think so.
And like the minute, that helped me as well, because I was being quite protective. But we both agreed that we loved your content and stuff. And we were like, this guy's going to be just like, yeah, he's going to blow up.
Mm-hmm. I remember even because that was the first time someone asked me to do something. So even I was
because
like,
I remember we were talking to you and we were saying like, just be yourself. We were like constantly telling you. It's funny because watching I was watching one of your old videos that came up the other day, and it makes me laugh because I remember your infliction to your one football advert. It's like one football has chosen once again, and I was like, it's so funny hearing that now because like I know you a little bit better and like you're looser in your content. Oh yeah, I'm like, that's him. But where is he in that? So I think like when we started like branching out, you know, we obviously had Tina Keach come on, and like we had Pip on a Patreon episode, and I mean, Johnny Sharples was the one, right? Like, you know, the Vika Strock episode was just amazing, and I think we started to actually realize and sort of expand out, and then start to look at other people. But again, it was we organically found people because again, it was that even the 5-star lads that were just so lovely, like they were the nicest guys in the world ever. And again, it's like, you know, you had that concern of we're coming into a space, you know, and we were coming into their space because they had a podcast, and it's like they could have turned around and been like, actually boys, like sod off, like, but they weren't. They were really sound about it. So I think we both kind of went through it in a different way, but I think the outcome to it was a good thing and the right thing. And and then the podcast just got stupidly silly at lots of times.
Well, I think it had to get silly. I think it had to get silly, and the reason it got silly. Okay, now here's why I think it got silly. Okay, again, Matt, you feel free to correct as you go through. Aaron, you might be privy to some of these conversations as well. Like you mentioned earlier on about this level of production value that we all kind of aspire to. Like, you know, we all watch podcasts nowadays on YouTube where they're sat in these studios and it's all filmed in 8K, and it's like it's just, you know, 3 comedians, like, you know, and there's like a £9,000 setup for like an hour every afternoon, and we're still doing this, you know, remotely, which is totally fine, right? But we want to make it the best we can. And when Matt and I were doing the audio podcast, Matt, again, very kindly was producing it in the background, and we went from 15 episodes of "Hello, we're the Football Manager Therapy Podcast, don't you know?" To I've got a sound effect. I want to use a sound effect. Okay, Matt, you got a sound effect. That's fine, right? What have you got? Okay, well, I'm going to do this sound effect here. And right, okay, well, we're talking about Italy, aren't we? So what I've done is I've put this bed of music underneath that makes it sound like James Richardson's Cafe. And I was like, okay, Matt, that's good. Lockdown's clearly affecting you. So, and the problem is, if you start doing that and you tell me, well, guess what? I'm not only in the train, I'm driving the train on a different track.
So the first sound effects we used were the Charlie Sloth fire in the booth, and then we did the like bam, 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 bam. And like, because you just said it, you like, we just started messing about because it was after the 21 seconds rap, which I'll get to in a second, and then and then that was it.
Oh god, yeah,
of course, like, this is amazing, which then led to us making a episodes later that had like full production, like, and it killed me. Like emotionally and physically, those episodes took like years of my life even. But yeah, so the if anyone was listening to FMT back in the day, everyone probably remembers the rap intros. And the reason they started was I wanted to have like a stupid slick intro, and they started me just being like, it was literally just me kind of doing spoken word, but really badly. Because I remember the first one, like one of the first ones I did was it was something it was a reference to Nicki Minaj and Megan Thee Stallion, and I said it's a guy that knows his way around a WAP, a wide advanced playmaker, and that was it. There was like no music, and Tony laughed, and I was like, oh no, and then it just, these intros became a thing. So yeah, we were recording one day, and I did. And I can actually say this on a podcast where someone will actually know the song. You know, Belle Biv DeVoe, Arron, Poison. That girl is. So I did this whole song to it, and it was like, I was so proud of it. And Tony just sandbagged me, just completely sandbagged me, no reaction. Like, I've never heard that song in my life, and I was like, oh no. So then So then I had to like think of a different intro. And then I don't know where it was. It just came out. So I think it was FM21 was coming out, wasn't it?
Didn't I just say? I was like, yeah, FM21's like, it's FM21 seconds to go, and you were like, right, hang on, 2 seconds, and all I can hear is YouTube going on in the background, and he's like busy writing it down, and the quickest rewrite I've ever heard, and I think you only did it in 2 takes. I'm sure it was 100% two takes.
It was 100% one take. It was 100% one take.
I'm trying to undersell him here, aren't I? Sorry,
only because I slipped up and it really annoyed me. And you were like, you've literally rewrote a rap in like 2 minutes and performed it, and like, and then that was it. We just, because I was really cautious. I was like, I don't think we can use like music and stuff. And then it was there was one that we did, and we would.
Neighbours was the one that we thought we could. We used the actual Neighbours theme tune.
So then it became so we started doing these musical intros just because they would make Tony laugh. But I would have to find like karaoke versions of the song, or like knockoff versions. So copyright. And then it just spiraled from there, and they got more and more ludicrous. Like they were one of my favorite ones was California by Dr. Dre and Tupac. I did that for an MLS episode, wasn't it, with Bob Bradley? And that is like one of my favorite ones that I ever did. But I think one of the most ridiculous ones was towards the end when I did Meatloaf, because it was when Meatloaf passed away. But I did like a full 2.5 minutes of like the song, and Tony's just sat there like losing his mind. But that was a rod for Arron back then, wasn't it? When we started doing those, because everyone wanted them every single week, and I was like, I'm writing these more than I'm writing the flipping show, or like playing Football Manager.
Yeah. Also, as well, it's really difficult when my musical knowledge stopped at 1996 as well. So it's like he doesn't get it.
It was just some songs I was just like, I can't. And my favorite thing is like you can hear him on some of the episodes where he's like, "Oh, I know this one," and you're like, "Oh, bless him." But yeah, like I think that's what we got to a point where we were just like, "What will make us laugh?" And it ended up being like some of the most fun things we did. But then that kind of led to the chaos episodes, which started with. So every show title used to be a pun. So it used to be like footballer name and then like a pun. It would be like song lyric, whatever, famous quote, whatever. It was something. And I just pulled out of thin air, "Come Luca Dean with me." And then it just stuck in my head. And I was like, let's do an episode where we would invite, was it 3 or 4 footballers to...
Three footballers each. To an imaginary dinner party.
Episode of Come Dine With Me. Like, who would we choose? And then the problem is like, I was like, well, I'm not just going to just make this an improv thing. So I did full production. Like, I literally went in, sound effects, like everything. Like, it was insane. My favorite one was when you did Paul Walrus, who was living in like a council flat. I literally got a soundtrack of like cars going past and like put in like a really low level of like drum and bass constantly playing in the background, dogs barking. Like, it's the best thing I've ever made in my life. And again, the problem is with that episode, like, we thought it was really funny, but so many people hated it. Like, full on, proper, like, please never run that again. And we only ever did one more, which wasn't as good, but it did make us laugh. But people hated it. But, you know, you live and you learn.
That's why we put all that daft stuff behind the paywall now on Patreon. All right, if you sign up for it, you get what you pay for now. There's a load of daftness on there. Like we've started doing watch-alongs, which I remember again when we were putting this together. I was like, "Matt, do you want to come and do this?" He's like, "Yeah, we'll come and have a conversation." I was like, "Do you want to do a normal episode or do you want to do a watch-along?" And he's like, "No,
I just thought I'm 90 minutes to give up to just sit there and be like, oh, this is awful."
Well, do you remember when we did? Do you remember we did the watch along of the stand-up show? And that was like, I don't understand, Arron, how we made a 90-minute show last 4 hours on stream.
It was you doing it, so I think I turned up. I think I turned up for the first like half an hour, and then I think was either there or came in. Yeah.
Dupe and
And then
Simage, I think,
I went
wasn't
to
it?
bed.
Yeah.
And then woke up and a text you. And you were like, it was like 4 hours long. I was like, that show's like a tight hour. Like what? But it was good. It was good. It was. It is. It's fun. It's
wild.
Like I said. It's fun to kind of like look back on it now because like I say it all the time and I'm very sincere when I say it. Like it's the favorite thing I've ever made. Like hands down. Like I've done cool stuff and like you look on LinkedIn or look on my CV and you're like, oh my god, it's always the way though, isn't it? When everyone's like, oh, tell me about Wembley, and I'm like, it was really boring and the catering was good, but like that podcast was like. Yeah. It was, I think, do you know why it was? It was because, like, me and you were coming from a really bad place. We were coming from, like, lowest of the low. And I think making something that allowed us to be, like, 100% us. And, like, we chose everything. We used to shout out, like, charities at the end. And we'd always put focus on, like, certain things that we actually, like, legitimately cared about. And we had full like autonomy over this thing that we were creating. And I think we were coming from, as well as being like it being a bad time in general, we were coming from jobs that were really restrictive and like made us kind of like have to play a role. So to come in and do something like completely ourselves and then to like find people like, Arron and other people as well that it came around that, like Alice as well is obviously one of them as well. Yeah. And it's like we found people that we like actually liked and we wanted to spend time with. I think that's what makes it to me just like my favorite thing I've ever made. And like I'm so proud of it. And even when it came to the end with the podcast, like I was okay with walking away because I was like, I'm proud of it. Like I think we always said, didn't we actually? We said live show and then we're done. Like we were like, I remember that was always our goal. We were like, I want to do the live show. And then when Nottingham Comedy Festival came up, and it was just like the perfect like time of it, and like it was just great. So and like
it's time to say hello to the newest sponsor of the FM show. Everybody, say hello to Full Time Prints. Full Time Prints offer a variety of prints to give football fans the chance to remember their favourite football moments forever. They currently offer a range of goals, team sheets, commentary, and league tables. Prints are available in A4 through to A1 and can be bought with or without a frame. It makes the perfect gift for occasions such as Christmas, birthdays, Father's Day, Mother's Day, just because presents. Like, seriously, this is the perfect gift for every football fan. You want to go on the website, browse what they've got. They've got so many things to choose from, whether it's teams, European teams, international teams, moments that happen. And if you can't find something you like, you can even do a custom request. You can create anything you've seen yourself. Maybe you've seen a goal you want to relive. You can have that. Maybe you want to relive the first match you ever attended. Or maybe, if you're a Football Manager fan, you might want to do a custom one just designed for Football Manager that immortalizes your save forever. You can have a print done that has all your trophies, the entirety of the save, the key moments. Maybe you want to relive the Champions League final and have your team sheet and everything on there. You can do that with full-time prints. I'm thinking about getting myself one, and I'm going to put it right behind my head in my office, just behind here. And as a little sweetener for you, we've got a little bit of discount to help you out here. So use the code TheFMShow. We'll get you 10% off your entire order. Go to fulltimeprints.com. Use the discount code TheFMShow. That's 10% off your entire order, and there's free shipping on orders over 50 quid. So go get yourself a full-time print, immortalize that Football Manager save, let us know what you've got. Visit fulltimeprints.com, use the discount code TheFMShow, get yourself 10% off, and remember, free shipping on orders over 50 quid. It felt like you're right, like the thing that it felt, we had complete creative control, which is amazing. And we've never, as you say, we've never worked in environments where we are 100% in control of all of the output. We can say whatever we want. No one's going to tell us off. Not got any agents going like, you can't say that. Come on, you need to start do this. You go into that gig, you're definitely going to perform like that. I'm like, no, we're doing it how we want to do it. It felt like a band on tour. Yeah. Like, do you know what I mean? Like in a weird way, it felt like we were on tour. Really, like, because we were both doing it at the same time. Like, we'd get ourselves it was the highlight of our week was doing this show. You got the adrenaline rush that we would have got from being on stage anyway. So we put so much of ourselves. Like there was episodes where we would hit record, we'd press the button to stop, and we'd be like physically drained from like the performance element of going in, because we gave it everything we could. And again, maybe in hindsight, probably a bit too much, certainly on some episodes. But it was just, it's great that it allowed us to connect with people like Arron and Alice. And what I found most pleasing and what I'm most proud of from that show is the fact that it allowed us to be honest with how we felt at the time, because again, we're from industries where you're expected to keep telling people that you're doing fine. Like nobody ever in the world of entertainment says, you know what, things are a bit shit, or you know what, I'm struggling a bit. And it's always your online presence always has to be, I am successful. Don't say that you're struggling, because then someone else will get your spot. Whereas we went, you know what, fuck this, right?
Yeah.
Life's shit. Like life's shit at the minute, and everyone's feeling it. And if we're feeling it, other people are feeling it as well. And we opened up, like, and we just did these episodes that said, look, this is why the show's called what it is. This is where my head's currently at. This is where your head's currently at. And all of a sudden, you've got two blokes who are in positions of quote unquote influence or power are talking openly about how they're dealing with lockdown, with their industries closing, with general mental health. And the fact that we weren't in a good spot. And that felt so empowering to get that message out. And like, that's what I'm really proud of, because then to get people coming to us and saying, oh, you know, I'm so glad you boys have been talking about that, because I feel like this. And that was when we set the Discord up, that was the first thing I said to Matt. I said, there has to be a mental health channel in Discord. Like that has to be there as our focus, because we've talked about this and we've said we shout out charities and this is our beliefs and this is what we stand by. We've got to stand by that again. And that was really active as well.
Still is
that channel, and it still is. And shout out to anyone who comes and posts in there. Of course, you're more than welcome. We'll help wherever we can. But it was amazing to be able to sort of stand up and own that, you know. And Arron, I mean, you've obviously been like that as well with us. You know, you champion mental health, and you're more than happy to talk about.
But it's crazy though, because on Twitch I can't exactly do that. There's one time I streamed, and then people asking me. And I'm fairly open anyway, and genuinely, I'm in a good mood. But this time, I was like, not in a good place. And I just said it like that's someone asked you, because people do the same thing. I ask, and they respond. Some of them truthfully anyway. And I was like, not feeling blah blah blah. Next minute, gifted subs, and I'm just like, no, you lot stop. And then that's what happens. That's what can happen online. But and then I was just like, I can't do that no more. So now I just people tend to know that I'm not feeling great if I just disappear. That's sort of my thing. But I'm open enough on Twitter and stuff like that anyway. But on Twitch it's dangerous, because if I don't want to say I'm light like that, but if people really support you, that's what I think I've got to support. If people really support you, the moment I say, I'm having a difficult time, it's like people just throw stuff at me, and it's like that's not what I want, or that's what I'm asking for. But
it's an appreciation.
It's a bit awkward as well, isn't it? Yeah.
It's an appreciation of you and what you're going through.
No, but it's weird though, because
with you, and like,
when I see that to someone else, I'm like, I do the same thing. Do you know what I mean? If someone's, I'm like the same thing. I like give them stuff, and you know what I mean, try and support them. And I guess it's just weird because obviously it's not just one person that's doing it. It's a lot of people doing it, and that's where it's a bit different in it. If I'm just giving it to someone, then it's different than not hundreds, but there are tens of people just gifted subs as well. Not even just subbing. Obviously, some people are subbing, but it's just like 10 gifted subs, and that's quite a decent bit of money.
I think there's such a fine line between being open but not being too open, because you've got to be aware, especially on Twitch, man. Like it's too open. You can't be 100% like authentic. But I think it is good that you at least felt that you were in a space where you could even just say that, even if it was an offhand comment or like surface level or whatever. I think it's good. But when we had it when we did the mental health episode, we did a full episode about mental health. I'd never spoken about like
Yeah.
I think I called it. What did I call it? Like disassociation football manager or whatever. And it was and like the amount of
Something
people
like
like,
that.
oh my god, I do that. And I was like, I had a, I guess I'll reiterate the story, but like I had Football Manager 2010, and I played it for like 7 to 8 years because I had like a potato of a computer and just never upgraded it. But the reason why as well, it became a comfort game, and I had a Barcelona save, and it was so easy, and like I didn't have to have any like thought or input into it. I just kind of coasted. Like that became my disassociation game where it wasn't even my happy place. It was just a place that I could go to and exist and stuff like that. And like I've always said, like, especially now where we're not doing the podcast, like I go through cycles of Football Manager where like I'm playing it a lot or I'm not playing it at all. Like I definitely had it with like FM23. I guess like, it's a Football Manager podcast. Probably should talk about the game, but I didn't like 23. It just didn't connect with me to the point where I didn't buy 24 this year. I've got Game Pass, so I play it on Game Pass. But like 24 has been like one of my favorite games I've played. But it's still in there with that. Like I know sometimes when I'm playing it a lot, I'm like, oh, are we all right? Is everything okay? Are we hiding a little bit here? And then there is times where I don't play it, and I'm like, oh, okay, everything's all right. I'm not saying the Football Manager, of course, but I think having that conversation really helped other people go, oh, like, yeah, I do that. Because it is I think most people that play Football Manager enough that listen to this podcast, it is probably a comfort game, right? They probably seek comfort in it. So they probably have had that similar experience of like, bad day, I want to just disconnect from the world, and then, oh, look, here we go. Like you log in and you got your little wonder kid who, has never wronged you in life, and this is great, and you can take care of them like a Tamagotchi. It's amazing. It's the best thing in the world. So, yeah.
That was literally the bubble I was in for so long. Like, since I probably practically opened up the game, and it was literally, I don't really speak to, like, people know my mood. Like, you can read me like a book. My face is like during the day. But then I think Mr. Diz, I had a episode with Mr. Diz when he was doing his podcast, and that was the first time like I just spoke, like, because you're face to face, and then he's like asking through my childhood and stuff. And that was the first time I was like talking, but in my head I was like, I've got things I need to deal with, and then just like started crying. Yeah, literally on these podcasts, just started crying and stuff. And but that was like the first time that I'm actually just speaking, and because it's a Football Manager podcast, but you're not talking about Football Manager, you're talking about you, sort of thing, and how you get into it and that. And that's when I just realized, I've got things to deal with.
Shout out to Mr. Diz, by the way. That scouting center that he did was incredible. Again, in that same time, 5-star was out there, scouting center for FMT. Shout out as well, by the way. We go back to, we've already shouted the 5-star out, but they also did. Do you remember when they had the second lockdown? And 5-star boys did. I think it was a month. I want to say a month, where every day was like a sort of mental health check-in, and it was the first time they did it on YouTube, because they didn't used to do it on YouTube. They only did it on audio, and they got people on to sort of like, it was really interesting because I did it twice, and I did it at the start and then the end of the month. And the second episode was a bit ropey. Like I remember like speaking to them, then they were just like, you know what? It started out with really great intentions, but man, we felt rough by the end of that month. Like just feeling and hearing how much people were going through. But being proud of how much people were opening up about how that second lockdown hit them, because that was the one that was the worst one. Like for me personally, I think, joking on as we have a few times, like, it was quote unquote easier when it was all nice and sunny and everyone was doing Joe Wicks and bacon banana bread, but that one in November, we saw that coming, and it was just like, those headlights are getting awfully close. But yeah,
it is crazy. But down there.
It's fine though. It's fine. And then this is born. It's sort of like I feel like, again, it sounds horrible to say, but by going through we are where we are now.
Especially for me and you,
allows us to.
The way that we left FMT, obviously, like we've it still exists, and we handed it over to Rich, and who then has now got his team and stuff that we. I mean, obviously, like I know Jebaroo, like I've known him for ages, work with him still. I'm seeing him in July. But like when we passed it over, I think we both left for the right reasons. You know, I remember you calling me about this, and you were like, really like, oh, you felt like you felt like you were betraying me, and I was like the happiest person. I was like, yes. I was like, go and do it. Like I kept on saying to you, I was like, go and do it. But I wouldn't have gone to university like if I hadn't done that podcast, like if I hadn't gone on that journey, like, and I have to do it now. I have to do like presentations and stuff at uni and like surrounding things where I have to talk about it, and like because I wouldn't have got interested in data if I hadn't done that podcast. And like when people started sending us scouting stuff, and I wouldn't have done my scouting levels, and then I wouldn't have done that introduction to data analysis if I hadn't have done the podcast. Because like, okay, I might have got there with the game and I was already sort of like playing around with a few things, but like that journey directly led me to where I am now. And it's the same with you. You know, it was the perfect time for you to go and do something else, or like continue it in a different way. So like some of them were like, yeah, it's weird because you almost kind of can't put yourself in the headspace that you were in at that time. But like it is good now to be like look back and like have positive things to say about it, but also like be in that positive space yourself and be like, oh, like this is really good. Like this led to really, really good stuff, and like that's cool.
Yeah, it's similar. Yeah, remember, I wasn't into scout. Well, I was into scouting, but I wasn't doing any scouting. Like I've never written a report or anything until we had that Jakob scout on the podcast, and then it was literally like a week after that or whatever, I was already in my first experience with the Dynamo Tbilisi because of that. Because he already saw, I think he was already familiar with my content, but it was just like that episode, if you can watch it back, that episode, you could just tell I was locked in. I was taking in everything. As soon as we finished, it was like everything he said, I sort of applied it. And then he watched my reports over the first few days, and it was like, this guy's already improving, so let's just bring him and get him an internship. And literally just like that. And now I literally can't stop. I was saying it in we actually recorded a podcast episode earlier today, and I'm literally at the moment just addicted to football. Just can't stop watching, can't stop scouting. It's just a mad addiction at the moment, to the point I haven't played Football Manager in quite a long time. It's probably dangerous because I need to earn, but
I find this a really interesting point, though, because you're so into your football at the minute, Arron. Like, obviously, you know, because that might sound like a really stupid thing to say. On
like I was always watching football, but now I'm like,
but the only reason I say it is because I'm so not. Like I'm just so disconnected with football that I have no interest really. Like for me, Football Manager has become that escapism from all of the nonsense of the real world.
I feel scouting is similar for me though, because I'm not scouting like the Premier League and the Serie A and stuff. Like I'm watching like so like the commentaries in Bulgarian. Like my head is gone. I'm trying to figure out what the guy's even saying, and it's like, oh, Emmanuel. I'm like, yep, he's on the ball, sort of thing. And you're trying to listen out, like even like the tone of his voice, like if he's excited, and obviously he's excited about what the player's doing, or you're trying to catch certain things. So even when I'm just scouting and whatnot, I'm in a different world mostly. Even like now, I was watching the under-17s Euros Championship, and now they're speaking in English. Like it throws me off a little bit.
We used to have this though when we first started FMT. Like I'm not saying that I used to play the role of the idiot, right? But put it this way, the hat very much fits, right? Okay, like Matt, clearly very much a big fan of watching football. Me, not so much, right?
Yeah.
And I find it really interesting. And people who come and watch streams of that or listen to the shows and that, they find it so bizarre whenever they come in and they're like, oh, what football team do you support? I'm like, I'm not really fussed, like Sunderland. And then it's like, but what do you think about what do you think about this? And I'm just like, I don't really care. Like, I've got no idea what's going on at this point. Like,
I think that comes from how football media, as in like not Football Manager media, but like football media is consumed. It's that everyone has to have opinion, and everyone has to be like, outraged or whatever.
Yeah,
And it's like,
yeah.
I think, well, I know for a fact no one on this call's like that. We're all like, yeah, I'm just so indifferent. Like, but I do think,
yeah.
I got to that point where like I really don't watch the Premier League. Like, I just don't. I've got other leagues that I kind of watch. I watch quite a lot of like Champions League and Europa League and stuff because I've got the subscription. For free. So it's that thing of like, I do consume whatever I want, and then like obviously I watch quite a lot of J League, but like, I've ended up watching a lot more of WSL like this year. Like, and I'm no way, I know, I'm not an expert.
We watch it a lot.
I'm not coming in here being like, oh, I know everyone or whatever.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah,
I just find it just so
yeah.
much more enjoyable because there's no noise. There's no noise around anything other than, oh, this team's good and this team's bad. I think the biggest thing we have is,
I'm pretty decent at blocking out.
Me too.
I am pretty decent at that. I don't know. Yeah, like I can watch the Premier League, but when it comes to like, I don't watch the preview.
Turn on.
And I don't watch the post-match analysis. And like, I don't. The thing is that when I go on Twitter, like, I don't take what anyone says seriously. Like, it's just, and what I mean by that, like, they obviously, I don't even want to come across smug or anything, but they're obviously not like educated enough to be saying what they say. So I don't read it as if like, oh my God, I've got to reply, blah, blah, blah. But there is some instances like the Adam Wharton debut, right? England, or someone posted a stupid stat like 100% passing completion rate. Like, it's a stupid stat to post in the first place because you know what's coming. Then there's a whole load of, well, if he's got 100%, then he's not taking any risk. And it's just like, people are just talking about the stat that they haven't watched the game. If they watched the game, they would have realized he's only played 30 minutes in that game and he did take risk. He just happened to be successful with taking those risks. That's what happened in that game. But there's no context at all in any of these conversations. It's all like, oh, he's great because he's got 100% passing completion rate. Oh, but then he's not taking risk if he's got 100%. And it's like, none of you have actually watched the game. You're not speaking about the game.
But this is what we say about how, data is interpretive, isn't it? You can read it as 100% pass rate is brilliant, or 100% pass rate is you're not doing much. It's like the ones, and we'll mention obviously with Matt breaking data down in 2 seconds, but the ones that I hate on the social media posts are the ones about such and such has completed football. And you're like, fuck off.
Wow. It's comparisons. Comparisons kill me. I hate comparisons so much.
There was and I'm sorry, Arron, it might anger you, but there was the one that had come up at the end of last season, I think it was, and it went, oh, if Bukayo Saka had won like X, Y, and Z, and that he'd have completed football until he was 24, and then someone just went, that's a weird way of saying he's won one FA Cup, isn't it?
Mate, it's everything though, but it's just like, even someone like, I don't say this, I just, in my head, I say it to myself, but like, oh, Saka's world class. I'm like, yeah, but technically, the Premier League is world class. Like,
no. There's 5 world class players, and then there's elite, and then there's the rest.
See, I think elite's the top, right? And then there's, I don't know, yeah. But I just say everyone is like in the Premier League, everyone is world class. But it's just
really, I'm trying to think of a player that's in the Premier League. Is
someone
called Dennis?
Don't
maybe.
No, I think
everyone. You're already in the world class of, like, you're the best of the best footballers that play football.
Right, so all of the Everton team, no disrespect to Everton because Luton was too easy, right?
Yeah, but they're at the top. They're at the pinnacle of the football. Well, they're at the top.
Look at
competing at the top level.
And again, no disrespect, but like, look at West Ham, who are a pretty forgettable team when they're in the Premier League. No offense, again, but they won a European competition, so it's like it is relative. Like, I absolutely think,
like, you play, is that something like you put these players in a match against anyone below their level, and you instantly tell, and they're just because they're the best of the best. I mean, it's okay. There's gonna be some people like, okay, maybe he's not quite suited for that level. I mean, you're not going to look at Luton and be like, yeah, the whole team is well class. You know, but you get where I'm going with it. Like, it's a stupid comparison in the first place because it's all opinionated. Like, if you say one person's world class, not everyone's going to agree with that sort of thing. And it's just I
think if you put Luka Modric in the Luton side, I think he'd still stand out a little bit. It wouldn't be like, look at all these players that are the same.
Have you got to a point? Because we don't do the same thing, like literally the polar opposite, but like it's a similar thing. But like, have you got to a point where like you don't like saying people are bad players? because you've watched enough now that you're like,
literally, yeah.
Yeah.
But I've always been like that. I've always been like that. Like, you can't be a bad
you're
player
getting paid
if you're
like
a professional.
$5 million a year.
Yeah, like for me, like I would never wanted to be like I never played football to want to be
bad
professional.
comedians who are professional.
But the thing is that I'd never played like when I was growing up playing football. I didn't ever want to be like a professional footballer. Thankfully, or I don't know, luckily, I got to a point where it was like semi-pro, and instantly it was just like there was such a big difference. And in my head, I'm like, surely, like when you make it pro as well, the speed, everything is just completely different. I don't think there is bad players as well. Like for an example, I remember, and I was talking with a actual professional scout about a player in Slovakia, and like he's doing well, and I'm obviously asked about the person, and she's like straight away he got not written off, but the player, the person warned me that people might write him off because he's had a failed move already. Blah 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 blah. And in my head, it's like that doesn't make him a bad player though. Like there could have been circumstances behind it. Blah blah blah. And that you watch the Premier League, many players will perform different in different systems or under different coaches or under different whatever it is or different umbrella. Sometimes this is what happens. So sometimes you might be watching a player thinking he's bad. He might not actually be bad. It might just be certain situations, circumstances that are affecting his play. But I don't think a footballer's bad. Yeah, I can't have that opinion. I just simply can't. And it's crazy. Like you was talking about the thing as well. Like people might be thinking, obviously not everyone in the Premier League is world class. But when you're doing a scouting thing, people quite literally say like out of 5 and 5 is Premier League level.
Yeah.
Like no one said Messi level. Do you know what I mean? They're not trying to different. People don't really make, he's going to be Messi, or they would just simply say Premier League level, or they might say Champions League level, or playing a top team in the Premier League. Like it's just that's still the highest level that you can go. So surely that's the world class bracket. That's a class that is for the best. That would be my argument anyway.
No, I'm all for it. I think it needs to be broken down into arbitrary levels of, right, there can only be 10 world-class players. Who are you, right? And you all have to prove how good you are to get in. But even then, it's like, how would you define
exactly, because who do you say,
player,
exactly. And how would you pick the 10? Because
the problem is as well, like back when we were watching football, Tony, the reason why it seemed like there's only 10 world-class players is because you could only watch like 2 leagues, and then you'd watch an international tournament and you'd be like, who the is this guy? It's just come out of nowhere. Like Karol Poborski looked world-class in Euro 96, and then he did all right at Man United. I mean, he won a treble at United, so it's not like he did badly, but that's it. Like, it's just different. Yeah. We're so overloaded with information and access to everything. We can literally watch every single league in the world if we really want to, and I think it does make that job and that perspective slightly skewed and slightly different and than it was. And I don't think it helps that we play Football Manager as well, because like that wing back Barco. He was at Boca, was he? Or was he at Boca at River? But like, I remember watching it. Like, I had again, like I was watching loads of South American football for some reason at one point, and I was like, "Oh, this kid's pretty good." And like, admittedly, he stood out because he was just this ginger lad in the middle of Argentina, and I was like, "He's getting sunburned constantly." What? What's the Scottish kid doing here? What's his name? And it's really funny now because I see him everywhere. I see him on like, loads of Football Manager videos, and like people talk about him.
Yeah. That happens, though, isn't it?
I think that's what the reality of it is like the world's actually got a lot smaller in terms of like access to stuff, and I think our opinions and our subjective opinions can get really like messy and quite noisy. So
It's a comparison.
So let's sort of dial away from that. Then let's dial away from that. Let's talk about new Matt life, where Matt is now. Like no longer podcasting, no longer presenting. Very much now. I'm going to put you on a pedestal.
Yeah, apparently. Academic. Yeah. I mean, I've literally got one block left, so I'll be done in July, and I'm currently on course for a first in a Bachelor of Science degree, which is hilarious. Like, if you had told me when me and you started the podcast, like I was going to be like get a first degree from Lancaster University in computer science. I would have laughed in your face. But yeah, that's where I am. But yeah, it's been mad. Like it's been like, I think it's been like 2.5 years, because my course isn't quite 3 years. It's weird the way it's structured, because I go to like a slightly different university that is one of the shareholders is Gary Neville, which is a weird sentence. But yeah, so like, yeah, I've gone away and done computer science. And like, I think number one, like for me, it was, I never thought I'd ever get a degree. Like I dropped out of education when I was 16. Yeah, I dropped out of college. Like it wasn't the right time, circumstance and stuff. And I just worked from 16 to like, well, now I still do work. I still have to work, unfortunately. So like, it just was never on the table for me. And then just circumstances kind of like fell into place. I went down and I got, I remember telling you, Tony, was like, I got an unconditional offer. And I was like, what? Because they were, I actually, do you know what I did my presentation on? Yeah. I had to do like a 3-minute presentation, XG. And they were like, what? They were like, how did you know this? And I was like, I don't know. I just watched a lot of football, play a lot of Football Manager. And they were like, yeah, all right, you're in. And they just gave me an unconditional offer. And I was like, what? So it's really funny. Yeah, it's funny that I got him via XG. But it's really changed my perspective of on football. And especially data as well. Like I needed to go and learn. Like when I first started sort of like exploring the data side of it, even when I did the Stats Bomb introduction to data analysis course, which I really recommend. It's only like 50 quid, 60 quid. And it's cool. Like it breaks down a lot of things, but like, I think the thing with like data in football, especially like the outward stuff that you see on social media and even things in like the Athletic, which I think is a really high level, because their data scientists and their data guys are really, really like, you know, it's Mark Carey now, isn't it, at the minute, and Tom Warville, you obviously went on to work for Leipzig and stuff at a really high standard, but it's very surface level. It's very flashy, and like everyone gets really excited about like, here's this pizza chart. Like here's this cool like shot map, and like man, I get it, because I went through it, man. I did it, and I still do it. I still obsess over making my perfect pizza chart. But what I needed to go and learn was actually like, well, what is data? How is it structured? How do you interact with it? And all the like really boring technical stuff of how do you build a database? Like how do you structure everything? You know, and I've gone away and learned everything from complete web development to databases to cloud computing to like now where I'm probably at and where I'm leaning towards, which is data science. So algorithms, models, maths. I never thought I was good at maths. I was like, what? But apparently, like, do you know what? I was really fortunate. I had a lecturer that was like, it's not maths, it's logic and patterns. And he was like, that light bulb moment. I was like, oh, I can do that. You know, because again, what's Football Manager? Yeah. It's logic and patterns. It's that's all it is. And the minute I had that moment, I was like, okay. And it really opened my eyes up to it. I went to Stats Bomb conference as well in 2022, which was really cool. Got to see a lot of cool like talks and stuff. Ian Graham was there, that used to be at Liverpool. Don't know if he's gone back now with Michael Edwards. But that really helped again, of like being in a room full of like people that are infinitely more smart than me, and just sort of absorbing that knowledge. And like, I think that's what's been a big part of it, obviously outside of the academic side of it. Like I've just been learning from other people. So my university, we have strong connections with Man United, obviously Salford, Altrincham, all the sports guys are like my best mates because they don't teach me. They're all the sports lecturers, but half of them used to work in like performance analysis or like data analysis. So scouting. With one of the lecturers actually was at Everton's academy for like 15 years. He's at one of the women's teams now. So like I've had this access to not just my nerds, which is great. And I love it. They're my people. I love my nerds, but like I've had the football people and they ask, I think what it is like asking really good questions. Like, and I think the thing that football people don't get enough credit for is they have really good questions. So we had one the other day where like one of the lecturers, and this kind of probably would resonate with you, Arron, but like he was like, I need a way where I can just put all my scouting reports into something and it spits out the average score for a player in that position. And for me now, because I'm a little nerd, I was like, well, that's really easy. That's just a large language model. I was like, I could do that in like a week. He was like, all right, then do it. And I was like, oh no, I have to now do this. But it's like, that's a great question. Like, because to me, someone who works with like data and quite like very hard, like this is a fact and this is a solid thing, to have something so like loose and like, but how do we quantify that? And like, how do we like make people smarter and make smarter decisions? So it's been really, really eye opening. So I'm currently doing my final project. So for like my research and stuff, I actually did it on women's football. So I did all the academic stuff on the variance between men's models and women's models in terms of like XG. And there is a difference. It's one of them.
I'm pretty sure I did read that. Okay, because that sounded so fresh to me. I'm pretty sure I've read the email about 2-3 days ago. I believe it was from.
It might have been from StatsBomb. Would be really big into. And I've read StatsBomb are the leaders. They literally came out a couple of years ago and said like, we are now making our own model for women's football and stuff. And it was interesting in the research. So it's like things on XG. It's actually the biggest variance is between goalkeeping position, and it's probably a physiological thing of goalkeepers. Obviously, like in the men's game, like Football Manager in it is like you don't sign a goalkeeper that's any smaller than a 6'4", and they're slightly rare in the women's game. So I did a lot of like academic research on the differences and like how what changes could be made and what improvements. So my final project is I'm scraping a load of data, storing a load of data, and then I'm building a rating system for goalkeepers. So that's going to be my final project, and hopefully it's going to be a good one. But it's just been fun. I've just been able to just sit there and watch football and scrape loads of football data. It's great. It's amazing. So
I like that. That does sound nice, to be honest. I like the fact as well that you've gone with the women's game, because I've also found that whenever I have watched actual football over the last couple of years, I have watched the women's game, and I just find it nicer. Like I sort of get the impression that they enjoy doing it rather than just
that's
like
a big
being
thing
forced
for me.
to play.
No, I mentioned this in my research because I don't want it to be this perception of like, oh, isn't the women's game nice and open? Oh, isn't this lovely? Like, isn't it really approachable? Because I kind of find that patronizing. What I do think that I completely agree. Like, I went to the Euros when it was over here. I went to Man City Stadium, and I've watched. Don't hold it against me. I've watched Man City Women's a few times. It's just easy to get to where I live, and it is a really pleasant thing. But the actual important thing in terms of why women's teams should get better access to data, more access to data, and use of data is they don't have the capacity to have as many scouts as the men's game. So, for example, Lyon, Wolfsburg, and Manchester United women's teams do not have any scouts, whereas a Premier League team has 50 international scouts. I think there's some teams that have 2 scouts the most in the women's game, so that is forcing them to have to use data to filter through, whether it be on Y-Scout, StatsBomb, whatever. And it's good. Like StatsBomb, if you are a women's team in the WSL, you get free access to their complete data, and it's great. But there is actually the restrictions on the game at the minute are actually forcing them to have to make better decisions and be more savvy. I know there's been a recent thing that's come out with like Chelsea women's are now the same level as the men's team. They're not below them in the thing, and they're actually open to investors in the women's team specifically. So it is growing and stuff. And that's the things that fascinates me, because there is so much talent there, and there is so much possibility, and it's actually thinking, well, how do we actually get this to that level above and beyond, and like processes, how do we make it better? And also, how do we learn from the mistakes of the men's game? Because oh my god, there is so many mistakes.
That is a podcast in itself, isn't it, to be honest? So
the men's game is it's just crazy.
Very quickly, while the show's on, have you remembered, if this is YouTube, to hit like on the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and leave us a nice little comment as well, because that really helps everything out. Makes the algorithm pick us up, puts us in front of more eyes. That would be great. Gives us a bit of conversation to go with as well. Obviously, if you're on Spotify, just subscribe on Spotify, leave us a little review, leave some comments on that as well, and join the Discord. Come and get in the Discord. Come and have some conversation. That's where it all happens. There's loads of people having some great stuff in there. We can talk tactics, we can talk game modes, we can talk player searches, we can talk real football, we can talk anything over in the Discord. So all those links in the description below. Basically, it helps us. It really helps us get the show in front of the most eyes possible. So if you can do all those things, that would be awesome. It'd be much appreciated. But yeah, back to the show. It's just a mess. It's just an absolute mess. And I think, the influx of women's football into FM25, I'm very excited about it. Obviously, you mentioned at the start of the show, Matt, speaking with Tina Keach previously. Hopefully we can get her on again in the lead up to FM25 and see if we can have that conversation to help put more information out there as to what to expect when women's football comes in. And I do think it's something that's beautifully fresh for not just for the game, but the game is at the point now where it's attracting more viewers, more players every single year. It's now another base of players that can access it.
My only, I don't know, annoyance will be people making content.
Yeah.
Just because.
I get, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's the ones getting to do it. Like, they don't really want to shine a light on it like that. They're just doing it because, no one else is doing it, or it's the new thing quickly. And that sort of thing as well. That's what
we've already got a WhatsApp group going back and forth, myself and Matt, and I've already said I'm waiting for the first creator that goes, I've put all the men's team in the women's league, and it's like
because it's that thing as well. Like, again, I can be that just I don't know, just the annoying guy, but I've done 2 videos previously about women's football, and that, to me, like, that's just something that is kind of big-ish, and that I don't know, other content creators could have went on board with, and I don't know, shit. Like, if you really feel a certain way like that, and someone's actually out there trying to make that sort of content and let it be known, like, in my head, it's just like, then push that sort of content out there as well. But I swear to you, I just felt like when making that content, I just felt like alone, sort of thing, as well as because the view's gonna bomb. Like, Pep Guardiola compared to Emma Hayes, like, I know what's going to work. So I'm sort of putting my neck out there, making this sort of content. And sometimes you just want that little support from someone, especially when you read the comments as well. Oh, no one cares. That sort of thing, you know what I mean? You want that support from people, I guess. But
that's where it comes down to, isn't it? And where we probably feel ourselves, these 3 that are on this call now, having this conversation, we're now comfortable enough with ourselves to make creative decisions based on what we feel represent us. Yeah. It's not based on, Arron, you're maybe slightly different because this is your full-time job. Like, not necessarily those decisions aren't dictated by the bank balance. Like, I've said, and this is probably a great time to start mentioning this, I get myself into a fair amount of trouble online talking about certain teams that I won't manage. And I've made my views very, very clear upon, where I think the world of football is. And we've had online careers where I could have made my saves so much easier had I just taken the easy route and the morally incorrect route.
I think,
but for me, I don't get any credit from the game for taking a moral stance, but also someone will just go make the video that will get 100,000 views because 100,000 people want to watch that. Whereas you're saying there, Arron, you're making video about women's football. Brilliant, yeah. There might be less views per se, but the people who connect with it are going to love the fact that you've made that because no one else is.
Like, in my head, I didn't treat the video any differently. Like, I do the same now as well. Like, the missus will come in, oh, you're watching that. It's just, like, it's football. So it's football, when it came to the Emma Hayes thing, that was influenced from Total Football Analysis, reading their thing. And again, it's someone's tactical brain. That's all I've seen. Is someone's sports brain, how they see football, how they want it played out on the pitch, and I just want to replicate that in Football Manager. That was all. Then obviously the annoying thing was like, I've got to use Chelsea men's rather than the actual people. That was a bit annoying. And I did that with Chelsea and I did that with Arsenal. And it was just like, it's in my head, I'm not doing. There's certain managers as well in the men's game where there's going to be people that I've done the one in the Swedish league. Absolutely no one knows who that guy is.
Was it the
I was
Malmo
like, but the
coach?
tactical, yeah,
See,
exactly.
someone
That,
does know
yeah.
who he is.
But even that got a decent amount of views.
But I think the thing is like, number one, at the end of the day, we're dudes, and therefore this isn't actually going to affect us half as much as it's going to affect anyone that identifies as a woman or even non-binary in that space.
Yeah.
Like that's a serious thing that's going to come out of this, is that there should be, and hopefully there will be, an influx of new creators that come into that space, and they're going to eat a lot more bad stuff than we ever will. So I think, for us, it's our job to support those people and shine a light and give a voice to those people and help promote them with sincerity, because I think you're right in what you say, Arron, of like, you just see it as football. I'm the same as well, but you need to be careful sometimes to be like, you don't want to come in white knight and going, oh, it's football, isn't it? Because it's not. It's I know I completely know what you're saying, but I think you have to be careful with that, because it's that it's such a fine line to walk, and it is complicated, and you've got to make mistakes, and it isn't going to be smooth. And at the end of the day, it's just about keep going and keep trying to like do it because you actually care.
Yeah, because for me the point is that because like you said, like it's a bit like you don't want to just do it because it's just women. Like you don't want to make that point that I'm only doing it because like you don't want to. It's not a trend, isn't it? This is real people's lives. Like it's not a trend. The positive that's going to come out of it
outweighs, in my opinion, the negative, which is that it's going to put more focus on women's teams and players. And the thing as well is like everything's free. You can watch the whole of the Women's Champions League for free on YouTube, as well as Serie A, Spanish League. I think even the Bundesliga now, maybe. You can watch all of WSL is on like BBC on YouTube, half the time, or the FA player. So it's that content's out there. So if we can get an audience of like, again, like hopefully it is a new audience that identifies a different gender, that comes in and plays this game and loves it, and then goes out and finds this content, or even the existing like fan base, which I know like when it got announced, like we all, like everyone on this call, again, like Tony said, is like we were all like, hell, like we were blocking people left, right, and center. But the only way you can potentially change those people is by exposing them to this content. Like there is going to be people out there that are like outright like, no, I'm never going to watch this, or I'm going to manage this. Blah, 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 blah. Forget them, they're lost. But there's those people that might be on the fence and like might be like, well, actually, I don't know a lot about this. And then we've all been there with that man, like Football Manager save, where like, I still remember winning the Champions League with Standard Liège, and I love that team. And like, I'm always checking it. And like now we have a generation of people that are going to come in and have that with Wolfsburg's women's team or Barcelona's women's team or whatever. And I think I genuinely think that positive really, really outweighs the negative. So hopefully, like it does continue to get better, and hopefully the Welsh women's team continue to be good, because they're getting there. We only missed out on the Euros, really, really close, because it was the worst thing in the world ever to have to sit there and watch England win a flipping Euros and actually like the team as a Welshman. It pained me. And I know I'm preaching to the choir, Tony, but it pained me because they were all so blooming likable and they deserved it. And I was just like, ooh.
Well, don't worry. But thankfully, the men's team let everyone down, so it's fine.
Never.
But again, just as a final sort of piece on that, like, I'm presuming we haven't got people who've got to this part of the episode going, you know what? No, I am going to stand. Like, look, if you don't want to play it, you don't have to, right?
Yeah, that's the thing.
So many.
There's so many
nobody
leagues that you
forces you to manage in Latvia, like, but it's there.
If your argument is quality and standards, like, I don't want to manage them, they're not good enough, and you're there with your tier 10 little journeyman save, you're an absolute
the dog
idiot,
and duck,
like an idiot. I used to go and watch West Didsbury and Chorlton play football, and it was the bare basic concept of football. So don't talk to me about quality and standards. It's ridiculous, man.
Oh,
Yeah,
but
yeah, yeah.
I don't know any of the players. All right, so you're well versed in Estonia. Are you? 'Cause
Aaron's
that's
like,
where
yeah,
you're
I'm
managing
at
at the
least 5 of them
minute.
from there, actually. Like,
Yeah. Also, what happens when you get to a part of your game where it's all new gens? Do you just
Yeah.
stop because
Oh,
I don't know
no.
who any of these
Yeah.
people are?
God.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Oh, people aren't people great? Oh man, I'm enjoying this. This is nice. We'll talk
Okay,
about
yeah.
saves. Come on, let's talk a little bit about saves before we start looking around this up. Then, so we've mentioned standard Liège. I'm going to say as well. Actually, I'm going to give you a bit of prop, Matt. What I enjoyed was when we would have tactical discussions and football discussions on the show. What you did was you opened my eyes to a little thing that we lovingly refer to as football logic. Okay, and no, it helped me understand playing the game in a different way. We mentioned on the last episode when we talked to Ian McIntosh that you play the game for so long. Isn't this right, Arron? You play the game for so long, you get
Stuck in your
entrenched
way.
into this is how I play the game. And when we sat down doing the podcast, you explained things to me that I was sort of going, oh, I'd not thought of that. And then Aaron's took that baton and just went, thank you. You know, like when your ex meets your current partner, going like, oh look, I can see the work you did on it. Right? Thank you for that. Right. So, and that's sort of where I've gone. I've prepped him for you. You go and finish the job.
I love that. I think there might have been a message in the group chat where I said to Arron, "He's your problem now." Like, I'm sure that's something that I've said. Which is why it's so funny because it's true. Yeah. Like, yeah, no, I think it is interesting because like having those discussions about tactics and stuff like that, like I think people's thought oh god, I'm such an academic now. I think the most interesting thing is people's thought process. Like, how did you get to that point? I think because when you actually break that down, everyone learns. Like, everyone can actually learn that. And like a football manager, so you can play it in such a varied way. And you know, I must admit, there's some stuff that you do, Tony, that just enrages me because I'm the most meticulous man in the world ever. I'm like so systematic and like I have structure and everything. And then Tony will be like,
I'm similar.
He's like, I'm going to eat a trifle in Greece or whatever. And it's like, oh God, it just, yeah.
Side quest.
But no, but I think it's, yeah, especially with Football Manager, I think like, yeah, you are right. You do kind of find your way to play it, but then it's having that little conversation of like, oh, I did this, and I'm running this tactic, and like, you know, like definitely,
yeah.
All right, so we're talking about saves then. Come on, I'm interested. I know what you're doing, Tony, because I'm in your Discord.
No, it's not about us. Right. Everyone knows what we're doing. Everyone's bored of listening to me going about Greece. But what I was going to mention was that the ones that you've probably enjoyed the most over the last few years have been a little bit off the beaten track. Like you're not one of those ones who sits down and goes, Premier League 5 seasons are done, right? Which, you know, people play that game that way. That's completely fine. Recently, I think off the top of my memory, Mexico was a big fan of Mexico. Canada. Everyone, if you've not played Canada, by the way, you need to be playing Canada because it's so much fun. MLS obviously as well is one of yours. And what's your chosen route really out of those, or even your more up to date?
So again, going back to it, and I'm not ragging on it. Like, I really didn't enjoy FM23. I hated that game. Like, it just.
I mean, you're not the only one.
I loved it. I thought I've got a different.
I remember I said the same thing. It was like, I think that was the point. I was just like, that was where I was like, maybe the FM25, like that would have been the perfect moment for an FM25. The rebuild work came for me.
It's so to the point where like I legitimately do not own FM24. It's just on Game Pass that again I happened to get free with my phone contract, and I was just like, I didn't play like the pre-launch or anything. I literally waited for the release and just stuck to it. But the polar opposite. I've ended up just loving this year's game. Like, I absolutely adore it. And I just kind of was like, I kind of wanted to do something different. So I messed about a little bit with like early Journeyman, kind of boring sort of Pentagon-y type thing, and I was just like, I never enjoyed those because I'm not like a milestone hunter or a glory hunter which is ironic given what I'm going to say in a minute. I don't like that. I don't like winning to be like my point of a save. So I ended up and I was like, well, what continent have I really not spent that much time on? And I was like, well, Asia. I was like, no one really manages in Asia. We'd done it previously with Indonesia because you were there and I'd messed about with it a little bit when you were over in that save as well.
Yeah.
But like I was just like, oh, let's go and try something different. So I've ended up I started in Australia because basically, and this comes into Canada and Mexico and MLS, I love rules. Rules are the best thing in the world ever. I absolutely
I know, Arron.
I love it
yeah.
because it's just pure structure. And it's like, you can't do this, you can't do that. Because I'm not very like disciplined in the sense that, you know, when you've got self-imposed rules on your save, you're like, oh, youth only and whatever. Because I'm too tempted. I'm like, oh, well, let's go and buy this 28-year-old because he's pretty good. So I love it when a game makes me like these are rules. And oh my goodness, Asia has got all the rules in the world ever, and the best thing is none of the leagues are the same. So like you just move around and you're like, I have no idea how this league works, and this is cool. So A League I play every year, and it's kind of like MLS Lite, where you've got like different contract types and stuff. So you've got a scholarship contract, which is for like young Australian players that don't count towards your wage bill and your squad numbers, and then you've got your general contracts, and then you've got your, I think they call them like guest players, which is like you can basically have someone for a season that's a bit fancy and you don't have to count it on your wage bill. But the main thing with Australia is you cannot sign players from another Australian team. And you obviously have to hit a quota of having Australian players, or if you manage Wellington Phoenix, like New Zealand players. But then even then, before I go into the Australia thing, Wellington Phoenix are a New Zealand team that play in the A-League, and they can't qualify for the Champions League because they're in a different flipping, what's the word for it? The Confederacy. Yeah, because there's Oceania. And I'm like, that's mad. So yeah, I love that. It's crazy. So having to go into Australia and think, how do I sign Australian players? So I'm like scouting Australian players or like dual nationality Australian players that play for like Crawley Town, and I'm like waiting for their contract to go. Greece, because there's a huge obviously expat community, and you start to learn like the transfer market. You learn the market and you learn how to do it. So I ended up managing Adelaide for like 5 seasons. It was going to be a one club save, and the aim was, I worked out that Adelaide's wage bill was 0.61% of, I think it was Al Nazir, the top Saudi team. So 0.61% of their wage bill. And I was like, if I can win a Champions League with an A-League team, because obviously like a lot of it's usually like Qatari, UAE or Saudi teams dominate that thing because they just sign like everyone from the Premier League, and it's just constant. So I was kind of like, all right, so Asian Champion League is my goal. And then it just got a little bit boring with Adelaide because it's easy to dominate the A-League in a similar way to like, it's easy when you figure out the MLS, like
he's gonna have the same issue that I've been banging on about.
Yeah.
When you do those like sort of building nations where I'm like, okay, I'm dominating my league now, but just not good enough.
Yeah, we were all right. We got to a quarter final. But I was kind of that's challenging. I was like, I can stick this out. And what I actually ended up doing was like bringing through a lot of like youth players, and I made it kind of like not a youth only save, but whatever.
Yeah.
You basically made Buddha Glimt
kind
in
of,
Australia.
Yeah.
That's essentially callback to your Buddha Glimt save.
He's playing for Man City's first team now, and every time I see him, I was like, I had him at Boda. It was amazing. Yeah. But yeah, so I kind of like, do you remember John Alisi? His nephew plays for Adelaide, and he isn't good. John Alisi's brother's a manager in the A-League. But so it's his son, and he isn't even that good. But I played him every game because I was just like, I remember your uncle. So like I just got super into it, and then I can't remember. I think I kept on getting loads of job offers, and I was like, well, I need to go and do J League because I've been like the guy for like 10 years. I was like, J League, let's go. And then I got there, so I took over Yokohama F Marinos, who were obviously like City Group, massive team. They had fallen hard. hard times. So I took them over and was like, oh, this would be great. And then I discovered that I absolutely detest managing the J League. It's like the championship, but with like continental like football. It's too much. It's like you got the flipping All Japan Cup, and then the League Cup, and you got the league, and you got continental, and I'm like, oh, this. You play like 2 games a week for like the whole season. And I was like, oh, it ruined it. I was like, I really love watching the J League in real life, and I never want to manage that. So yeah, managed to like get Yokohama back up there, and again, I kind of like it was fun, and like we had some fun players, and getting talent's good there, you know, and whatever. And like the J League doesn't have too many rules. In fact, the J League is a bit soft because foreign players there's a group of Asian nationalities that don't class as foreign players. So it's like, I think it's like Singaporean, Indonesian, because like their incentive in real life is that they're growing the league out. And then there's also that like Albrix Nagata have a Singaporean team that's only got Japanese players in their team in Singapore, and you can only sign Japanese players, and it's this thing in real life. So yeah, like J League was okay. Well, it wasn't okay. It was miserable. So then, hopefully, I'm you know, any of our Chinese listeners could potentially correct my pronunciation on this, but I think it's Shenhao Shanghai. So not Shanghai Port, Shenhao Shanghai. And I think like they're called like the flowers of Shanghai. And I was like, oh, that's beautiful. I was like, that's so beautiful. So yeah, I roll up to the Chinese Super League, and I've discovered that it's my favorite league in the world ever. Because it's just got ridiculous rules. So on transfers over £2 million, you have to pay 100% tax. That means you pay twice the amount of money. So to make that even more difficult, you can only sign Chinese goalkeepers. The market for Chinese goalkeepers, oh my God, they're like 30 million. So if you want to sign a Chinese goalkeeper from another Super League team, you've got to pay 60 million. I was like, what is this? It's insane. Foreign players have got a tax as well that isn't too crazy. And then like the FA Cup is, so I think it's this, and someone might correct me on this, but it's based on the team that you play. So say if you play a team that's lower down in the system, it's based on how many foreign players they have in their team that you're allowed to play. So when you play the smaller clubs in the FA Cup, you can't play your 5 foreigners because they've got no foreign players. So you have to hope that you've got like good youth players. It's so many rules. It's just like rules. And it's just great. Like, it's just the right level of like fun in terms of like, well, how do I approach this? How do I go? And like you've got to think about like your foreign players you're signing. Like the Chinese league is a little bit better in terms of like resale value than J League and K League, South Korean league, which we'll get onto in a bit. But like you have to really think about like, well, is this player actually going to make us better? This foreign player, like I had this Italian striker that was like temperamental in personality. I was like, oh, amazing. And like he had like one amazing season with me, and I made like 10 million on him because some Saudi team came in aboard. So it's just been like that's been really, really fun. So yeah, I ended up winning league and being really good with them, and annoyingly then Yokohama and Adelaide both won the Champions League after I left. So I was a bit annoyed. So I ended up jumping over to South Korea, to Jeonbuk, you know, the team that has like the really good youth academy, and we ended up after 18 seasons, we ended up winning the Champions League. In fact, that last season I won everything. I won every trophy, so left because that's what you're meant to do. So yeah, but it's just been great. Like it's been so cool to just be like, oh, let's figure out how this works. It's like playing a different game.
Yeah, that is mental.
I like that. I do love an Asian save, I must admit. Like I've done China once, and it was a few years back. I think it was FMT days. And I was
Ice City.
I've no idea how to pronounce it.
Yeah,
Hailing Ice City. Yeah, and the only reason I picked it was that I figured if I was going to put it online, I did a thumbnail of
Yeah.
Grand Theft Auto Vice City with me and the sunglasses on. I went, we're going to manage them. And that was the only justification I had for doing it.
The thing is, though, it's like, it's been so, like I said, it does feel like a different game. Like, you know, and like, I really, so for full clarity, after I left Shanghai, I've gone to MLS because I'm like, he's back. And because I went to,
Strikerless in Seattle again.
I'm at New York Red Bulls because like every single team I've been at, they're all big teams, but they're all just like Red Bulls finished bottom of the supporter shield, not the conference, the supporter shield. Do you know how bad you have to be in America to finish bottom of like 30 teams? Like, that's awful. So I was like, yeah, I'll come in and be a hero. But it's just been fun to go and like figure out, like, it just feels different. It's like, well, this isn't normal to me. Like, you're not going on instincts. You're not like, and you're not, when you win a champion, like, I think when I won the Champions League, I think I got 3 million, which in China is nothing. I'd have to pay 100% tax on that. So it's like, you know, who's the real winner here? And also travel costs. Oh God, you've really got going. Travel costs in Asia when you play the Champions League are absolutely insane. And they come out of your finances. So I'm always down on the months when I play away in the Champions League. If I have to go to Bangladesh or like Hong Kong and like wherever in the same month, the travel costs like really like come out of your thing. So you have to think, well, hang on a minute, like, are my play wages taking me over the limit of these travel costs? It's been admin manager and it's perfect. I love it. It's everything that I love.
I think there was someone a few years back, I think I remember reading it on the forum or something possibly. They'd created a club from Ireland and they put them into the UK, into the English league. And they started at the bottom, so they were bankrupt in year one because of the travel costs of getting to England.
I love that stuff.
It's just like their part-time club. They couldn't actually afford to like get through. It was like they had to have a takeover at the end because it's just like there's no money in the club. I'm like, you didn't think that through at all, did you?
Yeah, it's been crazy because there's so much things like, so in South Korea, I noticed that I'm such a nerd. In South Korea, I noticed that like no Korean player, or very few Korean players, would ever get sold for more than 2 to 3 million. So I was like, well, I'm never going to pay 2 to 3 million to buy a Korean player. But obviously, like, I have to have Korean players on my team. So how do I go about that? And like, I just got like, had to make like 1 million filters and searches and stuff and like really go like in on it. And then foreign players as well. Like, I had to think, well, because what was happening was I'd sign a really good foreign player. I kind of was always top heavy, you know, good strikers and whatever. And then I knew that like a Saudi team would come and buy him. But the problem is, like, I think the most they ever got was like 10 million. And then the minute they go to Saudi Arabia, they're worth like 30 million because their reputation's high. But it just makes you think. It just makes you think of like, you know, it's really hard to get above. I think like the highest rated team I think I was at was maybe Yokohama, like 3.5 stars. But like the Saudi teams, like 4 stars, Qatari teams like 4 stars. So it's like it just changes your approach to how you play this game that we've all been playing for God knows how long now, 20 years. So it's exactly.
And the rest.
So I think that's the thing I would always say. Like, hopefully it would encourage that. There is someone in your Discord at the minute, Tony, that's doing that mad Brazilian challenge. Yeah,
the Closian's doing it. Yeah. I mean, shout out there, because what he's been doing is last year he did British Steel and he completed it, and then he started doing Build a Nation Greece, and I think he's pretty much completed that as well. And then he's went, I'm off to do Brazil at this point. So he clearly plays a lot of the game. He's very, very good at it. So
he's trying to win every state championship, I think so, or he's trying to manage in every single state of Brazil, and he's got a map. And like Arron, mate, honestly, like he's like 4 states in, and I was like, this guy's crazy. Like, I love that. Like, but that's
that.
No,
I don't even like the Brazilian league. It's just too many games. It's too many games, man. Sometimes I like a break.
There's karma for you trying to go over there and be like, oh, Fleminazy. Yeah. Like, trying to get all your little relationship stuff, and it's like, now you have to play it.
Yeah, so that's what happened. I can't remember. I was designing a tactic, And then it got to a point where I had to play Flamengo.
Yeah.
Like they're the strongest team in the game, and I had to play them 4 times in a row. And that's what I was like, I'm enough. I just quit the game. I was like, I played one. It was like Barbosa hat trick. Is like, yeah, it's over. That's just that's like they say ends there. I didn't even create the tactic. I just left it. People kept asking for it, so I'm like, nah, man, that league is because now, like before, I'm not ashamed to admit, but before there was like a lot of simulation involved. But it was like towards the end of last year when I was doing tactics, I was like, I just enjoy the game still, just to play the game, yeah. Admittedly, it's a bit of a drag sometimes playing the whole 38 games of a league or whatever it is, but because you get to like, if you're Manchester City, you get to like 20 games in, you're like 15 points ahead, and it's like, that sort of thing. And then, but I'm pretty much enjoying just playing the games. But the Brazilian league, I remember I did skip the state thing at the beginning. I did have to skip that because I'm sorry, I'm not playing, because they really don't rate the lower league teams in Brazil. So, I mean, you're sitting there just smashing teams 8-0, whatever it is. So, yeah, it got to the busy bit, and it was like, I'm not playing Flamengo 4 times, man. That team there, trauma.
Interesting. Okay, well, I think plenty to continue in the future. And Matt, what I'm going to offer you at this point is I'm going to suggest that you maybe try and come back at some point and explain MLS to us.
Because that's we're nearly coming up to 2 hours here. We're here for 4 hours. I'll have diagrams, like everything. It's the best.
Yeah. Well, that's what I want. I want you to come prepped. I don't want to just throw it on you now and go, "Can you explain MLS?" Well, yes, I can, Tony. Like, get yourself nice and comfortable. But I think that's what we need to do, because it's one of those ones where I think people love the idea of MLS, but I think that some people find it a little bit daunting. So we can break it down, and I think, bring your experience in, and we can have a conversation. It's been great to catch up, mate. Genuinely, it's been lovely to have a proper good conversation and a good catch up. Time to plug things. Where if people want to find your academic work,
I just don't have social media anymore. This is what's really funny, because I know you had Ian on earlier. He was just like, I have LinkedIn, but I don't really want to share my LinkedIn unless you're going to give me a job. So, I don't really have anything to blog. But I'm in your Discord. I'm in both, literally your personal Discord, Tony, and then the FM show Discord. So if anyone wants to drop me a message about anything, especially data related stuff, drop me a message. We'll talk about it. Hopefully I can break some concepts down for you and give you some resources and stuff. Because I will say that the one thing is, if you play Football Manager, you like the data side of it. There is so many free resources out there on the internet, and I've been on that journey, so I'm more than happy to help you get started on that, and maybe avoid some of the pitfalls that I did as well. So yeah.
Oh man, look at that, Arron. He's got our back, hasn't he?
Yeah.
And do you want to do the plug for the show, Arron? Where can everyone find us?
You can find us at the FM Show Pod. That's on. I'm gonna have to just say X now. I'm sorry, man, because I like doing that. And I'm not a Hammers as well, so I need a reason to do it. I always wanted to do it, but I'm not a Hammers. I'm not a West Ham fan, so yeah, X. X, go on, give it to you. So yeah. You can find the FM Show Pod on X, formerly known as Twitter, and also on Patreon, the FM Show Pod, where you can support us from as little as £3. Come and be a wonder kid.
Be a wonder kid. Come and get a Chaos episode down here. It'll be great. It'll be superb. Yeah, no, honestly, it's been great. I thoroughly enjoyed the show. Great catching up, great chatting. Hope you all enjoyed it. Let us know in comments and Discord and all that sort of things as to which bits you've enjoyed. And if Matt's got some resources for you, take advantage of them, because that boy knows his stuff. Matt, thank you very much for hanging with us. Hope you enjoyed it. Everyone, hope you had a cracking time. Take care of yourselves. Stay safe. We will see you all on the next one. Bye now.
Want to learn even more about Football Manager? Subscribe to the Patreon. Just visit patreon.com/thefmshowpod. Don't forget to rate and review, and follow along on the socials at the FM Show Pod.